Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a seamless VJ, sort of DJ kind of style loop. Now, this is not a design-focused tutorial. This is more of a showing you the correct ways to stay in the grid and make sure all your math and things like that is correct, so that when you go into designing, you know that you're correctly in the grid and you're not going to have any jump cuts or anything like that, and your animation looks seamless. So the first thing we want to do is go over to your user preferences and just change over here in the editing tab, change your keyframe interpolation to linear. If you have it at Bezier, which is normally default, it'll start slow, speed up, and then slow back down at the end of the animation, and you don't want that for a seamless loop. And then down here, I usually have my frames either at 50 or 120. I'm going to put it at 50. And yeah, now the frame rate, the frames that you pick, that doesn't matter in terms of making sure it's seamless. That's just the speed of the animation. So now into the actual modeling. So for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm bad with math. And there's a little bit of math that goes with making sure that when the camera goes through your scene and goes back to the beginning, that everything's perfectly seamless. And so I'll show you my visual method, and then you can also just a little bit of double checking with the math. So what I normally do is I'll add a plane and I'll hit S8 and I'll scale it up. And so what this is for is to make sure that everything within this square is modeled when you do your modeling. Everything within here, you can do all your designing, and then you'll put the array modifier on it and you'll just duplicate it up in here. And your camera is going to stay within this. Or if you want to duplicate or double the size of your design, just put an array modifier on this square, and then you just make the camera go in like that. And so I go into the viewport display of our transform settings, and I just changed it to wire, and we'll just keep it like that. And now I'll add our camera. So let me just change our settings here to make it point the direction I want. Put everything at 0 and then 90 degrees. And then, so, very important, everything needs to stay within these squares and our grid here. And so, every time you move something, you're going to want to hold down Control. And then as you can see, it's staying within these squares. It's not doing this. It's staying within the squares when you hold down Control. So I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge of our square here. And then I'll put a keyframe right here on the Y. Go to the end. Another very important thing, when you go to the end of your timeline here, click the right arrow and skip a frame. Because if you don't do that and you put your keyframe right here at 50, then you're going to have a duplicate frame and you'll see a jump cut. So put it at 51 and then hold down Control and bring it all the way to the end of your square here. You can see, double check, it's right there, and then add a keyframe. And then it's just going to stay just like that, and it's correct. Now, just to prove that this is in fact a perfect loop, that it's within the grid, I'm going to make a triangle here. Make a triangle here, bring it all the way down, and then fill type on nothing. And I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. So when you're modeling things within the square here, another trick I always use, I'll hit S2 or S5. And when you do that, it also stays within the grid that you're wanting to model in. So I'm going to put S3. And then when you're moving it, so it's S3, but we don't want to put an array modifier on it yet because we want to fill the square. So hit tab into edit mode. And then I'm just going to click on all these right here. I'm going to hold shift. And then, again, holding down Control, you'll just bring it all the way to the edge here. And on the other side, you'll do the same thing. So anytime you're wanting to select the vertices or the lines, the edges, you click them all, hold down Control, and then do your modeling. just like that. And then all we have to do is add our array modifier. The array modifier is going to be your best friend when it comes to doing these loops, because everything's going to be modeled within our bounds, and then you'll just duplicate it. I usually duplicate it around 30 times. All right, wrong one. I think it's this one here. Yeah. So -1 puts it perfectly right there. It usually ends up being positive or -1 with the array. And then I'll duplicate it 30 times in the array. Goes all the way down there. And then we'll just put a wireframe on here. And then scale it up. And now, if we watch our animation, it loops perfectly. Just like that. And so if you keep everything within your grid and you use the array modifier correctly, everything's going to work. And just as simple as that. Now, if you're modeling, you'll notice when it comes to the shading, whenever you put an image texture, not an image texture, just like a texture when it comes to the displacement in your shading nodes, it won't loop correctly. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so I've split my screens in half. I'm going to go to the node editor for our shader, and we're going to put a principled BSDF on it. All right, so here's where we'll have our problem when it comes to looping these textures. So I'm going to put a noise texture on it and plug it into the displacement. And now we have this. So once we try to loop it, sorry, our light's not working here correctly. I just got to parent it to my camera. All right. Now, if we try to loop the animation, you'll see, oh, there's a jump cut right there. And that's because our noise texture, the problem with it is it's taking that node and stretching it to the all the way through that instead of stretching it just within our one triangle that we have here. So the way you fix that is you go into edit mode, hit U, and click unwrap. And then we'll go back into our nodes here, and we'll add two nodes. A mapping node and a texture coordinate node. And so what we're going to use is the UV plugin on our texture coordinate. And so that's going to use the UV unwrapping that we used, and we'll plug the vector into the noise texture vector. And now, if we watch our animation, it'll loop correctly. See, seamless loop, except for a little bit of that right there. That's just Eevee doing its thing. That's not a problem. But the noise texture loops perfectly. And then you can go in and do all your shading as well. But every node you put in here for color and things like that, if you're going to have any sort of variation going on, you're going to want to put the mapping in the texture coordinate node and then unwrap your model and then plug in the UV to the vector of the mapping node. And that's how you do that. And yeah, I have to give a shout out to somebody real quick, Mantisa or Midge. I'll link his channel in the description. He has a pretty in-depth video on doing loops like these and a lot of other ways of looping video. I would definitely recommend you checking out his video, being that this is not a design-focused tutorial. He has a little bit of design in there, and so I would definitely recommend watching his after watching this one to just get some ideas, and then you can go in and do your own modeling and do a lot of your own thing. And yeah, that just about wraps this up. So yeah, thanks for watching.